and welcome to episode 3 of my podcast, The Good Way, with me, Torrin Brown, Pilgrim Officer at Canterbury Cathedral. Today I'm delighted to have in the studio with me writer and poetry therapist Victoria Field. Victoria, we met a while back. I was at one of your workshops discussing the transformational value of narrative in pilgrimage, and you were kind enough to send me your PhD on the same subject. But it's lovely to have you here in the studio now, and welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Before we get started, I just wanted to touch on the fact that I'm very interested in your work because it talks of the transformational nature or power within pilgrimage. And you come across it from a transformational view through writing and through narrative. I really want to address this on another podcast with you in greater detail. But I wonder if you could just touch on that slightly before we begin, because when I read your PhD, and it helped me a lot with the research I was doing for my dissertation, which was on the transformational power of pilgrimage from a physical and experiential point of view. I wonder if you could talk just a little about the narrative side of that, the creative side, let's say, of imagination.
Yeah, certainly. So I was a very bookish child and quite introverted, so I spent a lot of time roaming around the countryside and reading books and really thinking about the things that I'd seen and seeing how they were reflected in texts and so on. So walking was absolutely fundamental to my growing up. Mm-hmm. And then later in life, I learned about the Camino to Santiago, and as soon as I'd heard of it, I thought one day I'm going to do that. And you're probably aware of how we have these intentions and then the years go by and you think one day. Yes. And then suddenly the time was right. I had an email from two friends who were trying to get a group together. I could make the timing, and I was also at a kind of crossroads in my own personal life because my first marriage had broken up, and I was processing who I was in the marriage, before the marriage, and who I was going to be. So I absolutely leapt at the chance of going on this walk. And then, as fate would have it, everybody else pulled out. So it was just me and my friends. And this was in the days before smartphones. And somehow we lost each other on day 2. Which was actually quite fortuitous because I think when you walk alone, you're very much in your thoughts, yes. And it was a very profound experience for me, just thinking about my life to date, things that had happened, and my intentions for the future. And then when I came back, I decided I wanted to put this into writing, because writing's something I do quite naturally. Yes. And I discovered that writing the story changed the story again. And then, I won't go into the details there, but then an opportunity arose to actually work with a memoir expert on putting a text together. So I did that, and the story changed yet again. And then it was actually published in book form. And I sometimes think, that was written by a much younger person. If I told the story now, I would tell it differently. Uh-huh. So that's how I became interested in that interface between pilgrimage and writing. But what it taught me, both the walking and the writing, was how pilgrimage works on so many different levels. Yes. And I knew as soon as I got to Santiago, I only walked for 2 weeks, that it wasn't enough, that I wanted to do more. And so moving to Canterbury and learning about the Via Francigena, that became my second goal, and I was determined to walk that.
Right, that's lovely. That's very interesting. That's very interesting because a lot of pilgrims that I met along the way and speak to are sent out on the road by what I call, from Mircea Eliade, a sudden rupture in life. Something happens and forces you back out on the road to try and look for meaning in that, or to understand, or to face adversity. And so it's very interesting, that story. And of course that can be perfectly encapsulated in narrative, because the pilgrim tradition and history at Canterbury Cathedral is all about narrative, about the monks writing down the stories of pilgrims that arrived at the tomb, which were then translated into stained glass later on in the miracle windows. And yes. I was talking to medieval historian Rachel Koopmans the other day, who described it. These were not stories of monarchs and noble people. They were ordinary people. And yet the cathedral translated those stories in this very, very expensive high art form. The detail is beautiful. But when you read the stories in the windows, it's just of normal people. Something had happened to them. Something bad, tragic, a catastrophe, a sudden rupture that brought them to look for healing at the shrine of Thomas Becket. And I think the word healing is significant because it's not so much in the medieval times they would have talked about physical healing of an ailment. Healing works on so many different levels. And I went on the road for a similar reason to you. But you find that healing in life along the way, and life takes you into other directions that you don't really understand at the time. But looking back, you can look back from a position of having been healed through that process. So I think healing is such a profound theme in pilgrimage.
Definitely. And as you allude to there, healing can take place in so many different ways. And I think there's something very physically healing about being outside all day, every day, about walking. Rebecca Solnit talks about the brain working best at 3 miles an hour. And with our sedentary lives, we don't often move at that pace.
Yes.
Healing in the sense of encountering people, healing communities. It sounds a bit grandiose, but a lot of the economics of pilgrimage is based on micro-commerce, that you go to a village where the cafe might be marginal, but pilgrims are coming and having coffee and a sandwich, and the village starts to regenerate. And then maybe on a more transpersonal level, we're talking about healing the earth, which is so compromised, because when we're walking, we're doing something that's very gentle. And Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist activist who died a few years ago, he has a lovely phrase where he talks about kissing the earth. And so much of our movement now is we're hurrying or we're burning fossil fuels, but when you're walking, you are literally, touching the earth with your feet, over and over again, and so that healing is absolutely two-way. And then, of course, the path is an amazing metaphor. This relates to writing and narrative. The path is linear. And most of the narratives that we read are linear. I work a lot with poetry, which isn't necessarily a straightforward narrative. It can be more of a house that you enter from different angles. But there is something very powerful about something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you talked about the idea of a rupture of time. When we go on a pilgrimage, we rupture the normal daily life. So the medievals would have spent a long time preparing for their pilgrimage. They would write their wills, they would give away possessions, they would say goodbye to all their loved ones, because they would typically be away for years. And then when they came back, they would be different, they would be changed. So again, there's another whole layer of narrative.
Yes.
And I was very interested in what you said about the stories of kings and noble people. I think what pilgrimage also teaches us, and I'm sure you found this, is that we are, in spite of our status, occupations, age, gender, whatever, we are all on this same human journey. We've all, we've loved, we've lost, we've had crises, whether of faith or confidence. And when we're walking, everybody's dressed the same. You may have more or less expensive kit, but basically we meet on this very, very human level, and the conversations can be very quick to get to the crux of things. Yes,
doesn't take long for that to open up.
No, not at all.
That's the sense of communitas, which is the transient and spontaneous meeting of perfect strangers, but with common purpose.
Yes.
In the sharing of the breaking of bread. Sharing of stories, sleeping in dormitories if that's something you have to experience. But that's such a powerful part of pilgrimage, which is a liminal. Edith and Victor Turner spoke of the liminal process, that it is a transformation. I call it a metamorphosis. Because they describe the liminal process as a person that you will never be again, but you don't know who you're going to be.
Yes.
While you're on the journey.
Yeah.
That liminal period, they famously call it being betwixt and between those two states. And
Yes.
I remember reading, and I forget who this was now, but somebody called pilgrimage a confrontation with nature, with the communities, the people, with structures of meaning, and with religion, with your faith.
Yeah.
And whatever the mystery is that's behind the creation of the universe. It is a confrontation with all those things. And being in touch with the planet, I remember when I started on the walk to Compostela, I was carrying along my own emotional baggage, but there were other people involved in that, in my family too. And I dedicated every footstep to be a prayer that would go up for us, for my family that I was walking with, and carrying on all the emotional rupture and dreams and aspirations and hopes for. And that was lovely, because I felt every time I put my foot on the ground, every footstep, that beautiful metronome of footsteps, it was a prayer going up for us, that accumulating. And so that was a wonderful metaphysical contact I had with the ground.
Yeah, that's very beautiful. I love that idea. And I was thinking of pilgrimage as being a metronomic meditation. You know,
Yes.
so some of us might meditate sitting on a cushion, but there's something about the tick tock of the footsteps, which perhaps echoes the heartbeat.
Yeah.
And I certainly find walking very prayerful, and walking a pilgrimage route, that's amplified because of all the cultural meaning that is around an ancient
Yes.
route. And I found myself saying the Jesus prayer a lot,
Right.
because that was just very meditative and very, very opening. And then one of the things I would do, which perhaps is allied to you praying for your family members, is I would go through the alphabet and just see which person surfaced for each letter, and
Wow,
then try to pray for them, or send them, you know, some sort of healing if they needed it, or to think about my own relationship with them, and whether there was some healing required. Because again, as you know so well, there are many hours in the day when you're walking, and this last walking pilgrimage, I walked with my husband, but we walked separately in the day, and then we would catch up for coffee, lunch, and
nice
so
idea.
on. So that felt like a shared solitude. We were very much in our own thoughts, but we shared the experience.
Tell me more then about that, because when I received your email, you said you've just come back from completing your pilgrimage along the Via Francigena to Rome. And in your email, you said it was a very prayerful pilgrimage. And I loved that. Immediately that leapt off the screen to me.
Yeah.
So I wanted to explore that a little more in this podcast. And you're full of, you've just come back. So you're still there on the road, on the path, in a way, and full of the wonders of pilgrimage. So please, yes, tell us more about your experience. And
well, this pilgrimage to Rome from Canterbury, which is where we're sitting recording this podcast, has been going on now for 7 years, and we took 7 stages to complete it. So in the early stages, it was very easy to cross the Channel and do 2 weeks in northern France and then come back. So we did it that way for a while, and then because the distance to start the pilgrimage became longer, we did 3-week chunks, and then this year we completed it with 7 weeks from the Italian Alps all the way to Rome, and that was the longest that I've ever walked, and the longest I've ever been away from home. I think I was trying to remember. So there were some personal things that facilitated that. We had an elderly dog who was very beloved, and she died, which gave us the freedom to go away for longer. Yeah. And then my mother is 93, and I was fretting all the time about whether I could be away for that length of time. But friends of mine and my sister stepped in and visited her, and I came back to find that she had absolutely thrived. So so that was in my head, this idea that I couldn't go.
It's a blessing.
Yeah, and then also because it's Italy, you could get back in a day if you needed to. So
in
that
an
was
emergency.
In an emergency.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
So yes, as you say, I'm I'm full of it at the moment, and I'm dreaming about it. I'm processing it. I'm fantasizing about going to Rome and walking all the way back to Canterbury, because of course that's what they would have done in medieval
Yes.
times. They wouldn't have got there and got on a plane.
Easy jet back?
Yes.
No, not in those days.
No, and
Wow, that'd be a project.
yeah, and thinking about narrative, I mean, there's lots of theories of narrative, but the classic and rather discredited now, because it's quite a male-centric view of Joseph Campbell, with the idea of the archetypal story, the hero's journey.
Right.
And when the hero sets out into the world and meets all the challenges, the hero has to come back. And often with contemporary pilgrimage, we forget about the return.
Yes.
So we come back, and perhaps that's a mistake. Maybe we should walk back so that we've got time to re-assimilate.
Yes, to slow down back into the groove of the profane
profane
that we've left behind.
Yes.
To enter into this weird state, this magical state, which is maybe betwixt and between the sacred and the profane.
Absolutely.
I don't know. So that is very good, because you do just come back, plonk back into life.
Yeah.
The alarm goes off. You've got to get back to work the next day.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the pilgrimage is not over, as I found when I came back. It kept going, and it brought me back to Canterbury to then weirdly decide to read a degree in theology at university, which I'd never dreamed of in my life. And then it brought me as a part-time student job to Canterbury Cathedral, where I met a lot of pilgrims.
Yeah.
And realised that the pilgrim welcome at the cathedral was maybe insufficient, based upon my experience of arriving at Compostela. Started to change the culture there, and now when I graduated, was offered the chance to do this full-time as a pilgrim officer. So this Camino is still unfolding for me. It's still leading me forward.
Yes.
But
there's a lovely quotation from St. Bridget, which is, God, show me the path and make me willing to walk it.
Right.
And I think that's an idea that carries on beyond pilgrimage. So of course, when you're walking, you need to be willing to walk. And earlier you talked about pilgrimage as confrontation, and as well as confronting, weather and unpleasant accommodation and dangerous traffic or dogs or whatever it is, we're also confronting our own sense of limitations or our own inability to listen to the voice of God and be directed. So there are those kinds of confrontations as well.
Yes, our limitations, until we're tested. That's one thing I found out about walking to Compostela. And I walked at the wrong time of year. It's in March and the weather was terrible and the facilities weren't open and there were all sorts of challenges. But I'm so happy looking back for that, because it made me realise let's say, there were parts of me that I didn't even know existed, and you don't know until you're challenged.
Absolutely.
And that brought that out of me, that desire, that immediate desire to want to quit, that I've made a mistake and I just need to go back, but then to dig deep and to keep going, and overcome all the obstacles. And then the realisation that I never knew I had that in me until I was challenged with it.
Yes.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. It's partly because it's step by step and day by day. Because if somebody had said to me, "You're going to walk from Canterbury to Rome," it would have felt very, very daunting. And I was extremely daunted by crossing the Alps, because I don't like heights, and there are a lot of very narrow paths with sheer drops either side. So for me that was a really difficult thing, and I had to really trust and just keep walking, and you get to a point where it would be more dangerous to turn around and go back. So I just kept going and going.
Keep going forward.
And then getting to the top of the Great St Bernard Pass was a high in a literal and an emotional sense. I thought I've really got through something here. I've faced a real fear. In Italy, my main fear was the traffic, because sometimes the Via Francigena follows main roads and there's barely a hard shoulder.
Right.
So I really did have to confront not just my fear but my dislike of busy roads.
Yes.
So I'm still processing that, because
well the Italians do have a wonderful reputation for their driving, especially down in Naples.
Yes.
Which I've experienced.
Yeah, I really saw some absolutely terrible driving, and it seems to be the more people that were on the side of the road, the more they would speed up. But
Right.
but what I learnt there was it was better to face the oncoming traffic, and if you try and make eye contact with the driver, then they would tend to give you a bit more space.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I probably stood there like a terrified rabbit, but I'm here to tell the
Here you are.
tale, and I think everyone has different fears. So
Yes.
so the Via Francigena, the sheepdogs occasionally attack pilgrims, so that's a realistic fear. But the one that I've noticed on lots of the forums, which is an interesting one in our modern world, is people having a fear of being bored. So you see
Right.
posts like, should I not go down the Po Valley, or should I get the bus on the last bit to Rome, because I've heard it's, I'm using boring as a sort of catch-all for the things that people say. And I think, again, pilgrimage teaches us to encounter everything, not to have a hierarchy of this is gorgeous scenery, it's so beautiful it will look good on Instagram or
Yes.
whatever. Because when you walk through a very depressed town or at the back of an industrial estate, you're still learning about the world and how it works and
Yes.
where we fit in it.
Yeah, that's the great Buddhist journey, isn't it? To go out and experience the world and the sick and the dying and
Yeah,
all the
for
different
sure.
aspects of life. And
Yes.
walking pilgrimage will take you through some challenging areas of deprivation,
Yes.
which we have here on our doorstep, but we tend not to go or venture
Yes.
into.
Yeah.
But you can't help it on the pilgrimage route.
Yes. Yeah.
So that is an eye opener.
Yeah.
And Sandy Brown, the author of the guidebooks, who I had on my first episode of this podcast, he described it quite beautifully, as especially through France, as an oscillation, because he said it's such a vast agricultural space, sparsely populated, that you'll find yourself alone for long periods of time. And some people might find that a challenge
Yes.
or fear
Yeah.
of just being alone. Other people might find being the solitude very attractive. But I love that idea of oscillation, when suddenly you'll hit a big town and the dynamics of the town would just completely turn you upside down. And I remember when I was in Burgos, I gave myself 2 days just to relax for a little. And although Burgos is beautiful, I could not wait to get back out
No.
onto the path.
Yeah.
Because too many people and the town was too busy.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I was itching to get back, and celebrated when I had to check out of the hotel and keep
Yes.
walking
Yeah.
back to loneliness. Well, it's solitude, which
Yes.
is different to loneliness.
Yes. Yeah. That's certainly true of France. When we walked through France, I think we may have met maybe 4 other pilgrims.
Right.
Because of course you're all walking in the same direction, so
Yes.
so you tend to just cross at eating places or sleeping places. Switzerland became quite busy because a lot of people start in Lausanne. So
Okay.
then we found that we were walking with a group accidentally, so we just kept encountering the same people, and everybody was staying in the same villages as we went higher and higher into the Alps.
Right.
The Po Valley was completely deserted. That's a very agricultural, industrial place, but also completely fascinating.
Right.
But then Tuscany is a little bit of a tourist hotspot, and we had a similar
Yeah.
experience to yours in Burgos, in Lucca, and we thought,
Right.
should we have an extra day in Lucca, because it's got so many sites. And
Yes.
the second we got through the great gate into the old city, our heart absolutely sank, because it was just
Right.
it was just tourist central. It
Yes.
really was. Lots of people, milling around in holiday clothes, lots of tourist shops,
Yes.
and we got over ourselves and we managed to to enjoy it. But like you, we were so happy to walk out the next
to leave it
morning.
behind.
Yeah,
It's funny because Sandy, who I've got a lot of time for, he's a lovely man, and very well regarded in the world of pilgrimage. When he went to Lucca, he fell in love
Yes.
with the town, and he immediately phoned his wife, legend has it, and said, "We're moving here."
Yes.
And
yes.
the next thing, they'd sold everything, and he lives there permanently now. And he describes himself as sitting in a cafe drinking a cup of tea, and a pilgrim just coming up to him and saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, you're Sandy Brown. Your guidebook means so much to me, because when I met Elizabeth, I forget Sister Elizabeth, she was walking to Rome by herself back in April, I think it was. And she said she felt safe with his guidebook
Yes. Yeah.
in her pocket. She felt like she was walking with him
Yes.
because all of his experience and knowledge was in her pocket.
Yeah.
And so that's lovely. Whenever anyone mentions Luca, I think of him immediately and think of this American
Yes.
who's just replanted himself in Luca purely because he walked the Via Francigena.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. Although I think there is an affinity between Americans and Tuscany, because
Yes.
that's where we met a lot of Americans actually on the path as well.
Okay.
So people that maybe only have a couple of weeks to walk on the Via Francigena, you would probably
Right.
choose Tuscany.
Right.
And I'm a huge admirer of Sandy Brown as well, and I'd hoped to see him in Lucca, but he was back in the States at that time. But he's a force. He is. He's somebody who's really done so much work on the detail of the path, which is just incredibly valuable.
Oh yes, because we met him at the AGM of the Confraternity of
We
Pilgrims.
did.
He was there,
yes,
of course.
Yes,
he was,
yes, and he's been
Yes, I
to
remember
Canterbury a few times.
Yes.
Spoken at Waterstones.
Waterstones.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, last time he was here doing that, that's when we recorded our
Yes.
little podcast. Right, and so let's keep going then.
Yeah, yes.
You're on the road to Rome. You got there.
Yes, yeah,
And
we did.
did you spend time in Rome?
A couple of
Busy
days.
with obviously Pope dying, new Pope,
Yes.
Jubilee year.
Yeah, I mean, we knew about the Jubilee year, and I was very inspired by Pope Francis's, and I've forgotten the technical term now, his bulletin about the Jubilee year.
Right.
And he wrote quite a lot about walking pilgrimage, and he talked about the need in our
Good.
world for silence, effort and simplicity. So that was very much in my head as we were walking. So effort speaks for itself. You have to do the miles and get to where you're going. Silence, I was thinking about all the different kinds of silence, because
Yes.
Italy is actually quite a noisy country.
Yes.
In many different ways. But there were, as soon as you got out of the towns and villages, periods of just the most beautiful silence, and then often bird song as well. So we were followed by cuckoos and nightingales, and it was just a joy to have the spring birds. And then simplicity. So you mentioned dormitories earlier, and when I walked to Santiago de Compostela, I stayed in dormitories, but that was 16 years ago, and I just felt now I'm of an age where I like a door. I think that's
absolutely.
that's important. Yeah. So we did stay in one pilgrim hostel in the mountains and had the fun of the communal meal, but otherwise we were in B&Bs and little hotels and so on. So I was chatting to Edward, my husband, about simplicity, and I was saying, well, have we failed in some way to meet that? And he said, well, actually, the simplicity is carrying everything that you need on your back. So we carried 6 kilos plus water and food when there wasn't anything en route. And then also just taking what you're given. So you might get to a village and everything's closed, so you just have a cup of coffee and move on. And when you get to a cafe to eat, you eat what's available.
Yes.
So it's that
Yes.
simplicity of just meeting, what's in front of you, and then wearing the same clothes every day and the same clothes every evening. So, getting to the Airbnb and washing, hanging it out and putting it on the next day.
Rinse, dry, repeat.
Absolutely. And then being a little bit boggled. I mean, I don't have many clothes, but even just opening one cupboard and thinking, what have I got all this for? It's just
when you get back.
Yeah, when you get back.
It does help you reevaluate.
Yes, yeah, it does.
Things.
It does.
And it helped me become more grateful for every meal that I had and every little bit of food that I had. I found myself saying a prayer before I ate on pilgrimage, more than I do in my daily life, because I was just grateful for anything that came my way.
Yes.
Even a protein bar from a passing pilgrim when I was in moments of distress, or an apple from a passerby.
Yeah.
It does strip life down.
It really does.
To
It really
the bare
does.
minimum. And when I was I walked out without a plan, because I was in such a disrupted mental state there was a little bit of anger, a lot of self-pity. And that manifested itself in a kind of attitude of, I don't care what happens. So I wasn't booking my rooms weeks or days in advance. I just walked, and when I didn't feel like walking anymore, I'd look around in a town and think, well, I'll see if I can stay here tonight. And sometimes I couldn't, so I had to keep going. And that was a weird dynamic that I then didn't want to be in control.
Yeah.
And I found that the times when I was trying to be in control, nothing was working out. And when I learned finally to step back and say, okay, I get it now.
Yes.
In your hands.
Yes.
At the most challenging moment, when I had run out of food, water, every village I got to, everything was closed. And I had no option but to keep walking, and my head was spinning, blood pressure was high, I was dehydrated and undernourished and panicking. And it made me stop, and I said, okay, I get it. In your hands be it.
Yes, yeah.
And then, I've said this story many times, within 5 minutes of my continuing, I happened across a cafe in the middle of nowhere, seriously, not even near a village or anything, full of pilgrims and an abundance of food that wasn't even on the map.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And then that was a moment when it stopped me in my tracks and said,
yes.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, oh goodness, that trust and that being able to
Falling
relinquish
backwards.
control. Yeah, I think it's a great lesson of pilgrimage, and nearly everyone has stories like that.
Yes, yes, it's not unique.
No,
it's not a unique story. That's the magic.
But maybe we have to be on a pilgrimage to open ourselves up to that, because we are careful in our everyday life, and I know in the pilgrimage world you can have it either extreme, people that trust to providence, so don't book anything, or even walk without money. We hosted a pilgrim in Canterbury a few Christmases ago who'd walked from Italy without using money. A young woman. Wow. And there were people like that on the path. And then at the other extreme, the planners. Edward agreed to do it as long as he knew where he was sleeping every night. So we had that, but we still had unexpected things. So in the mountains this time, maybe we took a wrong path, but we had a very, very long day, much longer than the guidebook said. And it was incredibly steep, and up and down and up and down and up and down. But we got there, and there were angels in the form of water where you needed it, or a cafe that was open.
Yes.
And I even heard of a pilgrim who couldn't carry his pack anymore. There was some problem with his back, and he was in despair and thinking he'd have to give up the walk. And then as he walked, somebody seemed to have just thrown away a baby buggy, so he was able to put his pack in that and push it along. So there are very, very strange
that's a
stories.
Classic Camino story. That
it is, isn't it? Yeah. Yes.
There was one point when two things similar to how people came to my rescue, and the blog that I wrote was always based around music, but this one song popped into my head. It was a song by Van Morrison called "Checking It Out" from the album Wavelength. And there's a lyric that stays with me. There'll be obstacles along the way which sometimes may feel so tremendous, but there are guides and spirits along the way who will befriend us. And I found that was wonderful. I was singing that constantly, because somebody would pop up. You have a problem or something happen.
Yes.
Suddenly an angel would appear
and
say, oh, you need to go this way, or you've wandered off the track, or have this, or go there.
Well, we had an example of that in Italy, where the rivers were very full because there'd been a lot of heavy rain, and there's a famous river crossing where there are huge stepping stones, but they're quite far apart, and you have to hold on to two ropes, and if you've got short legs like me, you have to more or less jump. So it was borderline whether we could cross the river. And if we hadn't been able to, it would have been a very long, boring road route, and we'd miss a very beautiful valley. And so we were going down. We thought, we'll just go and have a look. It might be too dangerous. And we met a couple coming up who said, we had a look, and it was just, we couldn't face it. We're going to go round the road. And we thought, we'll go on a bit further and have a look. And then we met a young woman, and I said, did you cross the river? And she said yes. And then she gave us really detailed instructions. So she said, hold the rope here. There's a log that looks unstable, but if you step on it fully, it's stable. And then if you go around the edge, you'll see some other rocks. So we couldn't have done it without her. But afterwards, I was thinking, where did she come from? Why was she walking? Why was she walking the other way? She seemed East Asian, so not Italian. So why was she down in this, fairly remote valley? So that was an example. And so we managed to do it. And I'm quite physically fearful. And again, that was a real lift to think, yes, I'm brave enough to do this. It's this crossing.
A God incident, not a coincidence.
It is, yes. yeah, that's a lovely phrase. Yes,
lovely said to me a while back.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a gift because it's not as if as individuals we deserve these things, and of course we could easily have gone round on the road. But you talked about that gratitude and feeling really grateful for simple things like food and drink, and just that gift and I felt all the way along that whether it was birdsong or flowers or trees or the beauty of the path that God's gifts are really so sort of in your face. Really, you can't ignore the beauty and the miracle of
sometimes
creation.
We just don't look. No, you're right. Yeah. It is the miracle of creation. It surrounds us.
Yeah.
And Owen Barfield said that the medievals their relationship with nature was like a cloak they'd wrap around them, not a stage upon which they'd walk.
Yes.
A stage upon which they'd strut around. And those gifts and you wouldn't have met that lady had you taken the easy route.
No.
So there is something that came into my mind when you were telling that story about there's a challenge being put in front of you, and it's how you face that challenge, that adversity, no matter how big or small. And if you take the easy way out and walk around the road, then it would have got you where you need to be, but you wouldn't have had the story or the rich experience along the way. But to keep facing it and keep pushing and moving forward, then these little angels and spirits, guides and spirits come and help you across, because where did this woman come from? Where was she going? Why was she there? And we have this sort of immediate reaction sometimes to reach out for a rational explanation for everything, but sometimes you just got to be in the moment and say, well, she just appeared.
She did.
And then we looked round and she was gone.
Yes.
What a wonderful story. What a great moment. A Camino moment, as I call them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
And you won't, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I was thinking maybe you wouldn't find these rich experiences just going out hiking, because there's nothing wrong with hiking. I'm not diminishing it at all. But when you walk pilgrimage, you go out with intent. Definitely. Somehow. And you're going out with more than just a walk in the countryside, which is nothing wrong with that.
No. And I think when we're on a pilgrimage, we're more porous and we're more open.
That's a good word.
So we're stripped back because we're not in our daily life. We don't really know what we're doing. We're yielding control to the weather, to the path. There might be mud, there might be steep slopes. It might be a bit dangerous. So we're somehow more vulnerable, and I think people are possibly kinder as a result, or kinder to each other. So in northern Italy, we had quite a few people winding their windows down and saying, "Where are you going?" And, we were saying we're going to Rome.
Lovely.
And they would say, "Oh, complimenti." And it was just such a lovely thing,
that's a level of support, because I think a lot of people probably would love to or dream about it, and they can't for whatever reasons that life throws up. Yeah. So they see somebody else doing it, they want to even say buen camino or good luck or my friend spoke about his pilgrimage. He's done every single pilgrimage on the planet almost, but his pilgrimage in Japan, and how people give you things because they're giving gifts to the spirit, to the God, not the God, but they're giving. Yeah. So by giving you something, they're giving the spirit something as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And I never forget his story of saying this car pulled up and a window came down and they said something to him in Japanese and handed him this huge bunch of bananas and drove off. And he just was standing there thinking, I can't carry these. I'm not going to eat them all. I'll have one, but now I've got to lug around this great big bunch of bananas with me. So I thought that was
Yeah, amazing.
A lovely moment of this
Yes,
constant.
Yeah.
It's the confrontation with the communities that exist along the path. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That's very
Beautiful.
very powerful. Yeah, and at one point in Italy, we stopped at a pilgrim's resting place, and it was run by a couple who were doing everything by donation, and it was very elaborate. Lots of cafe tables. The host was making cappuccinos for people. There were beautiful toilets, and it was their gift to the to the route. And I think on the Camino there's a tradition of the hospitaleros who are called to be hospitable to pilgrims.
They're all volunteers in the hostels, aren't they?
Yeah, yes, they are.
And a lot of people were cooking along the way in restaurants and cafes and asking for donation, whatever they feel we could leave or wanted to leave.
Yes.
And it was rich with that.
Yes. Yeah.
So, Victoria, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked a lot, and we've covered some really quite rich aspects of pilgrimage. And I'm very, very grateful for your time and your thoughts. So I think we could leave it here.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a lovely metaphor, covering the ground. I think we have travelled far and wide in the conversation.
We have. And then maybe we could do another episode where we investigate the theme behind your PhD a little more and talk about your writing and your poetry and the transformational power of writing and imagination in pilgrimage.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Thank you very much.
Good. Well, thank you for coming along.
Thank you, and bye for now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, as part of my walking pilgrimage section of the podcast, last episode I walked to Patricksbourne and wanted to keep going. There's a little hiatus in that I'm going to go back a few months to April. I had the opportunity to visit an Andalusian village in the Sierras to experience their festival of Semana Santa. In a small village of around 2,500 people, they put so much effort into the procession. With the marching bands, it is quite the experience, and I would thoroughly recommend it to anybody. Anyway, I embedded myself there for a week, and I recorded some of the procession and some reflections and observations along the way. So this week, my walking pilgrimage section is going to be observing the procession of Semana Santa in a small village in the Sierras of Andalusia, and I hope you enjoy it. It's nearly 8 o'clock, and I'm walking down a beautiful street in Andalusia. My head is I'm being skimmed in Andalusia, and the swallows are flying so close and skimming my head as I go by. It's nearly 8 o'clock, and it's on Good Friday. And I'm here to walk a small camino, a little pilgrimage, which I'm calling the Camino Doloroso, because it's the Good Friday procession in a very small town, no more than 2,500 people, up in the Sierras of Andalusia, where they have the beautiful Easter procession. It's quite magical. I've been here before, but now I've come here to walk the complete route, hopefully, and give you a sense of the sounds and the atmosphere. A lot of palms still in some of the windows here, and people drape a very dark red cloth with gold stripes out of their windows. They line the streets. So the bell's ringing, people are gathering, the crowds are gathering, and I guess at some point the band will strike up. So let's go and listen to the Good Friday procession. Well, luckily the rain has held off. If it rains, they perform the whole procession inside a church, which can be quite a dramatic occasion. I've experienced that before, but now we're out in the street. It's still a blue sky here. Some clouds scudding along up there and a bit of a breeze, but not too cold. The band's gathered. The crowds are here outside the church. It's a lovely atmosphere.
Let's take a walk through and take in some of the atmosphere here. Hola, ¿qué tal? Sí, bien, gracias. This is quite a thing. They have 2, maybe 3 bands here, dressed in their uniforms, some looking more official than others, very smartly dressed. Lots of saxophones, trumpets, drums. We shall hear them strike up soon. It's going to be a wonderful evening. I can tell there's incense burning in the street, so much from people's balconies. It's filling the air. It's a great atmosphere. The sky is resplendent with swifts and swallows darting around. There's such a big community here these months of the year. And I love the way the swallows come in so close. The golondrinas, they come in very close as you're walking down the street. They almost fly past you at head height or body height. It's quite something. But the swifts never. They're always way up there, screeching away. Okay, it seems like it's beginning now. The crowd has gone quiet, the band is striking up, and people are starting to exit from the front door of the church. Carrying a cross and some candles, and they dress up like the penitents, which is complete. People are completely covered with a very tall, pointed headwear in bright purple with yellow sashes. It's quite a look, and it can come across as possibly slightly intimidating. But this is an age-old procession and ritual. Everyone's gathered by the gate now, waiting for the big platform. 2 big platforms upon which is the statue of Christ carrying his cross, and Mary, the Virgin Mother of the town. The mobiles are quite impressive. They take about, at least, must be getting on for 20 people carrying them, and as they walk, they sway from side to side to give the statues a feeling of motion, of walking. And the procession has begun. I can see the cross slowly moving away through the crowd. Priest coming out of the church door now with some other members of the procession. Seems to be the first movement complete. All done in stages throughout the town. It takes about 3 hours in total. I have left the procession for a minute. It goes on for 3 hours. I've come. Meanwhile, far away in another part of town, there is another performance. It's called a saeta. And a family have booked a gentleman from Cadiz to come up and sing this Easter music called saeta. And I've been invited, which is a real privilege. Everybody is here. They're so well dressed and very, very smart. It's a beautiful house. And I'm feeling a little bit scruffy because I always dress like a pilgrim. But they call me the Peregrino, so it's okay. And so this gentleman now will sing the saeta, and we will listen as the band in the background, you can hear them processing, and they'll come this way eventually. Well, the atmosphere is growing as the procession comes towards us. First the cross with the people bearing the candles, the cross on the lights, dressed up as the penitentials, the crowd after them, and then the first platform with Christ on it, and they're coming slowly up the street. The neighborhood is full of people and it's beautiful atmosphere. And when the statue of Christ stops here at this spot, the man from Cadiz will sing the saeta. I'm told it's very, very emotional, so let's see, it's nearly here. The procession is coming past me, the beginning now, and there are lots of children dressed in beautiful, like altar servers, carrying baskets of gifts that they're handing out. Different cards and little sprigs of rosemary. It's quite a thing to behold. And closer they come. First mobile platform with Christ depicted carrying the cross is nearly here. There's the priest, the mayor, and the civil guard, with some of the altar people swinging the incense, the thurible, and the masters of the mobile calling out instructions, because the people carrying this huge mobile platform are all underneath the platform and they can't see. They're covered in a shroud, so they have to be directed. The mobile settled down to the floor so they can rest. Here is the suite. That was very powerful. And to a round of applause from the flamenco singer. Up they raise the mobile. Everybody claps. And off they go again. The incense is thick in the street, with the children with the thuribles swaying them back and forth. With that and the statue of Christ passing by me right now. People standing up on the balconies looking down, and the band following. It is a really beautiful and emotional moment. Now with Christ passing on the first mobile, another one equally as big and as beautiful, beautifully ornate. The second one is following close behind now, and we'll have another performance. It has its own band, and it's with the Virgin Mary, equally as beautifully adorned and intricately dressed. For such a small town, with such close and intimate streets, this is a massive procession done with such effort from everybody and communal spirit. You can hear the music mingling as the band behind gets closer now. You really have to hand it to them. For such a small place, they put so much into this, so much resources and effort from the whole community, and it really is very, very meaningful. Religion is nothing without ritual, and boy, this is one ritual. Here is the second platform with Virgin Mary. This is carried by all women of the town. And here is this one.
Madre mía, por la cara. Ay, 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 y de tanto
And up they lift the mobile again. I've heard that this is a very, very painful and exhausting experience for the people carrying the mobiles. And at the end of the evening, they are utterly exhausted. And as they walk, they step from side to side, and the whole mobile has this beautiful motion about it. Some people reach up and touch the mobile as it goes past, get close to the Virgin Mary. This life-size statue, bedecked in jewels and those beautiful clothes, vases of flowers around, all around the platform, and here comes the band following it. So the second band and the second platform has passed us by, and I will sign off now and follow them and walk the rest of this little pilgrimage round the town that I call the Via Doloroso, the Way of Sadness, which is a ritual replicating Christ's journey to his crucifixion, carrying his cross to Calvary. So it's going to be a long night, and this goes on for a few more hours, so I'll sign off here, say goodbye until next time, and I hope that was interesting enough to give you a little taste of Semana Santa and the processions here in Spain, in Andalusia. Until next time, goodbye and buen camino.
Well, that's it, folks. Thanks for listening to this episode, and we shall see you next time on The Good Way. This podcast would not be possible without the very good help and support of the team at Careers and Enterprise at Christ Church University.